Today we have a great topic which this might ping your ears because this is you. And so it is when perfect isn't good enough, and it's about mastering the art of imperfect success. So today we do have a download for you. I'm going to go through, it's going to go for a little bit longer than we normally go. I have a little bit more to cover because it is a really important topic, because this is the thing that sometimes people fall into a trap with. So if you would love the session and the PDF that we have, just type in perfection below and we will get it to you right now. So what we're going to cover today is the pursuit of perfect and how that interferes with your ability to actualize your potential as a coach. We're also going to go through flawless to fearless, so that you can be a little bit more brave in showing your flaws out to the world and being okay and comfortable with that. And then we're also going to cover the art of imperfection. So if you're watching the replay, type in replay below. If you are watching live, hashtag live. So welcome to class. When I started to do some research on this particular topic of perfectionism, what I found really interesting was that there's only really been about 30 years of research on this particular topic, maybe more so like 20 years. Because prior to that, a lot more of the research in psychology was done on mental health issues, and perfectionism was actually clumped in to other aspects like being conscientious, and so that was lumped into that and wasn't seen as its own isolating challenge or mental health challenge that people would face. Can't say it's really a mental health issue, it's just an attachment that we have, that we want things to be perfect. And so that can actually create a lot of anxiety, depression. We can even sometimes get a little neurotic in how we want things to be. And so that results in these sometimes overly critical part of ourselves. Now, next week we are going to go into self-criticism cycle, so do stay tuned for that. But today we are focused on perfectionism and that dynamic. And so I definitely put my hand up to being a recovering perfectionist. So I don't know how many courses I wrote before. I never actually put anything out, or how many books I've written where I haven't actually launched. And so there's this like drive inside of me that wants things to be perfect. And so because if we strive for something which is unattainable, and what I mean by perfect is there's no mistakes, no flaws, no issues, that it's perfect. And that's the one-sided version of it. So it's not the perfection that we often talk about when we apply universal principles and quality questions to our life, where we get to see this divine perfection and magnificent universe that we live in. But this is more the one-sided dynamic. And so for me, how it showed up in, and maybe you can share in the comments below how it shows up for you, but definitely for me, it was around this sometimes need to control things and making sure the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed in things. And then there was shame in if there was a mistake in my spelling, or an email that goes out and it said the wrong word, that I'm like, oh my gosh, hiding in shame. And so what I started to notice was that I wasn't really embracing the flaws that I had and that was actually preventing me from able to making a difference in the world, because I was too focused on things being perfect. And so essentially we want to be our true self, and that includes our flaws that come along with that, because if we can embrace that as a leader, it does show, and especially as a coach, it shows us our humanness out to the world. We did a beautiful session last night in our Maximum Growth Academy, and we looked at those flaws that we had, and those traits, actions, and inactions, or parts of ourselves that we want to keep hidden from the world. And so what is that, especially as a coach, and how do we bring that out more into the world? Because essentially, if we fall into the trap of perfectionism and we don't see a pathway out, we can actually have an amazing set of knowledge and expertise inside of us and never actually go and release that out to the world because we're stuck in the pursuit of perfect. So that's what we're going to cover right now, is the pursuit of perfect. And so that is when we are simply striving for this degree of, however you want to describe it, excellence, achievement, success, perfection in what we do. And we've raised the bar so high that it seems like it's almost unachievable and then you're spending so much time maybe in perfecting the information. Maybe it's perfecting, and you do your video recording of yourself, and you video record yourself 10 times. And so to do a 1-minute video, it takes you 30 minutes to do. And so it's like that pursuit for perfect is so much that it's actually costing you a lot of time. Or maybe it's an article you're trying to read and write to send as a newsletter, and you're like, oh, this is taking too much time, because you're trying to make sure that it flows properly and it has all the right words in it, and you're just having this excessive high standard. And then the result of that is it actually either costs you so much time, it costs you energy, it costs you mental frustration. And so instead of being and embracing the little mistakes and the challenges that you have. So I want to go through with you this kind of like concept of this, like the different types of perfectionism that we can have and that we may be being impacted by. So let me share my screen with you. And so this is in the download for you as well. I don't know, I'm on a little bit of an angle there. Okay, so essentially there's 3 types of perfectionism that may be influencing us. And so let me go through them with you right now. So first of all, we have our self-orientated. So basically this means that we have perfectionism, which is, why is that? That sometimes it does it and sometimes it doesn't. Give me 1 second, team, while we just get things worked out technically wise. Oh my gosh, I can't do it. What are we going to do, team? We're going to have to think on our feet. Stay with me, and I am going to get it now. So give me 1 second, team. All right. I'm going to share with you now the overall picture that I want to share with you. I'm going to drop it in. Is this like one of those moments where you're like teaching a class where it's about the pursuit of perfect, and then there's a flaw in here? Is this like one of those moments where you're like, yeah, like that moment? It's like a real teaching point. So this is how you do it, team. So I'm going to drop it in here for you. I'm going to go through the diagram so you can fill it out in your PDF here. All right, so there are 3 types of perfectionism that we can get bound to when we are doing our work. And so first of all, the first is that we are a self-orientated perfection. And so this is where we have almost like put that and we have imposed a perception of perfection of what we need, and it's self-orientated, which means that we're the one who is saying this is the standard it needs to be, this is the high expectations that we want, and it's the almost like strict parameters that you've put on yourself in order to achieve. And this tends to come with a lot of self-criticism or feeling guilt or inadequacy or anxiety and stress that you have around business and consulting and coaching because of it. And so what happens is you might have really a strong drive to uh, a strong drive to excel, a strong drive to achieve, a strong drive to make a difference in people's lives. But that is also kind of coupled with a lot of like distress that you have around the actual performance part or the execution part of what you're doing. So this is self-orientated perfectionism. We also have other-orientated perfectionism. So that is where we have had others to high standards. I know sometimes the team can sometimes feel this way, especially I know for me with a recovering perfectionism. When I'm super stressed about something, I will then get more a need, almost like a higher need to control things, and my perfectionism definitely jumps and shoots up. And so there's a higher standard then placed upon others for them to also deliver at the high standard that you want. And then sometimes that can create conflict in relationships because your expectation of what you want isn't matching what they're possibly capable of doing or in their value set of doing. And so there can be criticism and judgment and maybe even like disappointment that you have because they haven't achieved what you wanted them to achieve. And so there's definitely a strain on relationships when it comes to other-orientated perfectionism. We also have social prescribed perfectionism. So what I mean by that is this is when we have a look at the perceived external pressures from maybe conforming to society. What's the standard for requirement in terms of your field, in terms of you as an individual, how you're supposed to show up on social media, how you're supposed to show up as a coach, for example. And so there's this external pressure that we can have on ourselves, and then it's the external pressure that then we get exposed to and that is impacting us as an individual. And it's like, how do we ever meet and achieve that standard, because it's actually really difficult for us to be able to do that. And it's hard then to live up to the unrealistic or just the expectations of others. And that can then lead, for example, I see a lot of like people who have self-esteem, where they don't feel good about themselves. They almost minimize themselves relative to what everyone else is doing. And there's such a high level of expectation and perfectionism that needs to happen. And because they're not able to fulfill on that, there's an internal struggle there. And so what we want to be able to do is how does this like all interlink together. So as you can see on the diagram here, they're all interconnected with each other. So if we have this dynamic between our expectation and our self-orientated perfectionism with other people's perfectionism, when we see them together and we start to seeing them, we can have judgments, and we have judgments on them and ourselves. And that's the kind of downside of it. But if we understand what's your expectation, what's my expectation, and we meet somewhere in the middle, then you're going to have some kind of level of mutual expectation. And therefore the emotional challenge around the dynamic can be dissipated. If we look at the other-orientated perfectionism with the social prescribed perfectionism, what can happen is we can have the judgment placed on others of what a social norm is that how we should and should be behaving. And that can create this like external criticism of others, and somewhat also an internal criticism of ourselves as well. And so, but if we can find a balance between that, amazing and great, then it'll kind of also calm down that judgment. And so sometimes if you're wondering why do you have these moments where you're externally critical, maybe it's because there's there's social prescribed perfectionism, other prescribed perfectionism placed upon you of how you think that you need to be. We also have the self versus social dynamic of perfectionism, which plays out. And we might internalize our expectations that we have internal and say, this is what I should and how I should and shouldn't act. And we're kind of like morphing ourselves relative to the outside world. And that's where we really do lose a sense of self. So that is something really big that we talk about inside of actualizing your potential as a coach, inside of Maximum Growth Academy. It's like, how do you keep your sense of self without having to really lose your identity and who you are? Because that's essentially what you do when you're so stuck in this perfectionism cycle. You actually lose a sense of who you are because you're trying to fit into a picture of who you are and a one-sided view of who you are, or how society thinks you should be, or social thinks you should, other people think you should be, and you've lost yourself. And so there can be this like perfectionism pressure that happens as a result of that dynamic. So if you're wanting the resource for this, type in perfection below, or if you're watching the replay, you'll be able to find it in the download. So this is an opportunity for you to have a really deep dive into the dynamic around perfectionism. And so we have definitely had a rise in perfectionism, over the last number of years, because for maybe a lot of reasons, there's definitely social media definitely has a big play in us wanting to be perfect. I think because we have an opportunity to put a post up, and we have a moment to curate that post. We also have an opportunity to put a video or a picture up, and we can filter that picture or video and make it look amazing and cut out the mistakes. And so then this standard that gets released into, say, social media land, or the expectation because of that, can actually amplify then our perception of what we need to do when it comes to the delivery of our service. And then the standards of perfection is raised so high, it's really hard, because that's not life. Life is salty, sweaty, sweet. It's like a mixture of everything, and we want to be able to embrace all of that. So there are essentially three dynamics within perfectionism. We've got our self-orientated, our other-orientated, and our social-orientated. And they're all intermixed and interplaying together. So hopefully that's giving you another look into, it's not just this isolated, you have perfectionism, say trait inside of you, and then that's it. It's actually a bigger dynamic than just you alone. Okay, so our next part that we're going to cover is on that shifting really from the flawlessness to being fearless. And so we're kind of really balancing this concept between being a healthy version of striving for something and wanting to achieve something, versus a challenge of when does it become, say, interfering with your purpose and actually affecting your purpose. And so essentially we have what's called a perfection matrix, which gives you the opportunity to have a deeper dive into what it means to be perfect. So I'm going to share that with you now. And again, because we are learning the art of imperfection in this session today, you're going to hang out with me for a minute while I just find it. And so the perfection matrix we have here. Here we go, team. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share this. This is also in your PDF as well. So with this session, this is a matrix which you've come into a lot of our classes before. You would have seen this before. And so essentially we have this diagram, the other self, outward, inward. We have used this diagram many, many, many times before. So you would have seen it before. And so essentially it really looks at the different dynamics that come into play when it comes to perfectionism. And so essentially we have a focus on either ourselves or others. We can either be inwardly directed or we can also be outwardly directed with our experiences or the traits, actions, inactions that we experience in our life. So let me go through this with you. So first of all, when we are focused and we're stuck in that perfection model and we are more focused inward towards ourselves, so that's when we're like that we're self focused with our perfectionism. We can get this internal anger that can bubble up inside, and we can feel that because of the unrealistic expectations we have. And there can also be an element then of depression that can happen afterwards, because all of a sudden you're like, oof, I now feel depressed and I feel sad as a result. And so this is very self-imposed. So this is the dynamic where you've self-imposed your perfectionism onto yourself and you're trying to live into standards that you are trying to achieve. And this is causing both internal and also potentially external anger as well as depression. So we also then have, if we're also, instead of being inward focused with perfectionism, if we become outward focused with that perfectionism, we're focused on other people rather than ourselves. Control issues, definitely talked about that one already. So that was where we struggle. We even struggle with delegating tasks out, because all of a sudden your perfectionism, no one else can do it better than me. And so this kind of perfectionism comes through with this control that you have to be the one that does it. And so we also can have rigid thinking in terms of being able to say, well, no, this is the way that it has to be done. It has to be in this order, in this way, deliver in this quality. And so there's very much like a lopsided perception of the outcome or the delivery of what you're trying to achieve. So for example, I know Justin has been the bearer of this sometimes, and the team as well, in terms of making sure there's like a full stop at the end of every sentence. And so this rigid thinking, it has to be this way, rather than, well, what difference does it make if there's not a full stop? It's not the end of the world. And so this then allowing kind of a little bit more flexibility. And so that's when we are focused more on others, but it's also still inward. Now, when we go out focused towards others, so this is where we impose our ideas and restrictions onto others, and this is how we think it needs to be. And so we then can have this external anger and inflexibility, and the control also shows up as well. And so there's a lot more external anger because there's an unrealistic expectation of how you think it should be, and they're not achieving it and it's not living up to that expectation. And then we can also, down below, is when it's more self-focused but outward, it's like that imposing on others as well. And that can create this anxiety inside of us when it comes to our need to have perfectionism inside of us. So essentially, how do we work from then this flawless dynamic to fearless? Essentially, we have to, if we think about all the triggers and charges that we have, because that's a lot right now. You just thought, okay, I have this perfection streak inside of me. Maybe I'll just find the benefits of it and that's it. It's actually a lot more complex than that, as you can see. There's a lot more moving parts and dynamics in it. So you want to really think about and then unpack your dynamic and what it is for you, so that you can really be able to move into being more fearless and being more free with the mistakes or the challenges or the bleeps and the errors, or when you can't get your tech to work, just be okay with that, and you can find the benefits. But maybe, as I'm really big on, maybe there's a lot more problem underneath the problem that we need to find. Because if your idea is you would love to actualize your potential as a coach, and that's really what you're here to do. You would love to just be able to give more, serve more, be more in the world, make a bigger difference in the world, then working through this will be paramount, but we really want to have a look at what's the problem behind that problem. Is it the inflexibility? Is it the self-imposed? It's the high standards. Is it the need to control? It's like looking at those deeper issues are going to make a profound difference for you in moving forward. So the last part that I want to like just touch briefly on you is just really the art of imperfection. So I love how we can have sometimes this like relentless pursuit for perfect. However, it does kind of have an art to it if we're going to embrace the imperfection. And so, one of the things that we want to maybe consider is that we want to redefine what success is for us. Is success delivering a video or a piece of content that has no mistakes and that is perfect? Or is success really about being able to make a difference into someone's life and they're able to see through the imperfections, but they get the message that you're wanting to share with them, and that's what lands? And I think then if we try to be too perfect, we can get stuck. But if we're focused really on ourselves rather than what's the impact that we can actually make with the message that we have with people. And so how do we really embrace the art of imperfection and go about sharing your message with the world? So hopefully you have loved the session for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We do have a brand new offer for you. We are going to drop it inside of Students of Wisdom. So do stay tuned for that. It is a once just for the next couple of days and then it will be gone. So if it is something and you've thought about, I really want to step up as a coach, I really would love to be a part of a community of coaches that are doing and applying the work and growing their business, then this is the place for you. We have an amazing session, especially because we're going into helping you to really work through any rejection you're going to have and getting you to embrace your authority. So that's and leadership as well. So if something that perks your interest, check out the offer. We're going to drop it in Students of Wisdom just shortly, so check that out. I'd love to hear your insights and your wisdom from this session as well. So thank you so much, team. I hope that you have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world, and I look forward to seeing you at the next perfect time.